Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We're sitting, well, St. Paul's Cathedral. In front of us is the London Stock Exchange and also a prep. And the doorman's getting a bit upset.
It was all really peaceful until we turned this camera on. I tell you, it was like, apart from one kind of crane thing going by, it was all good.
Yeah.
But anyway, here we are. We just did a run.
Yeah, that's how we dress like this.
2.5K, not much, but it's a start because Bob's been had a little injury, so she's been trying to recover.
Yeah, I'm having physio.
And we've been traveling a lot, so we're just trying to get back into it. But just in case anyone wasn't aware, there is the Hare Krishna Runners. You can check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on Instagram and on YouTube, man. So, like that. But we're not here for that right this minute. We're here to read the Bhagavatam because you can read Bhagavatam anytime, anywhere, anyhow. And there's no excuse, actually. So, if you got your phone, you can read. If you got the book, you can read. If you got access to the internet, you can read. Got your iPad, you can read, like that. So I think we're going to read. Where are we?
Canto 3, Chapter 26, Text 31.
Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Verse 31, egoism in the mode of passion produces two kinds of senses, the senses for acquiring knowledge and the senses of action. The senses of action depend on the vital energy, and the senses for acquiring knowledge depend on intelligence. It has been explained in the previous verses that mind is the product of ego in goodness, and that the function of the mind is acceptance and rejection according to desire. But here intelligence is said to be the product of ego in passion. That is the distinction between mind and intelligence. Mind is a product of egoism in goodness, and intelligence is a product of egoism in passion. The desire to accept something and reject something is a very important factor of the mind. Since mind is a product of the mode of goodness, if it is fixed upon the Lord of the mind, Aniruddha, then the mind can be changed to Krishna consciousness. It is stated by Narottam Das Thakur that we always have desires. Desire cannot be stopped, but if we transfer our desires to please the Supreme Personage of Godhead, that is the perfection of life. As soon as the desire is transferred to lording it over material nature, it becomes contaminated by matter. Desire has to be purified. In the beginning, this purification process has to be carried out by the order of the spiritual master, since the spiritual master knows how the disciple's desires can be transformed into Krishna consciousness. As far as intelligence is concerned, it is clearly stated here that it is a product of egoism in passion. By practice, one comes to the point of the mode of goodness, and by surrendering or fixing the mind upon the Supreme Personage of Godhead, one becomes a very great personality or Mahatma. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha, such a great soul is very rare.
Any thoughts?
It's interesting. It says mind is a product of egoism in goodness, and that the intelligence is the product of egoism in passion. I would have thought it's the other way around, because it's always, mind is always here and there and everywhere and trying to enjoy in a certain way, you know, whereas the intelligence, you know, to be intelligent, I wouldn't have thought that. I would put that in goodness, intelligence, not passion. But
yeah, I thought Srila Prabhupada explains it more. He may do in this purport or the next. It is explained, and we did discuss it actually the other day. Well, not discuss it in depth, but I mentioned it was coming up. And it's usually thought the opposite. We would think that intelligence is in goodness and the mind is in passion. But as Prabhupada says here, The distinction between mind and intelligence is made. Mind is a product of egoism and goodness, and intelligence is a product of egoism and passion. The desire to accept something and reject something is a very important factor of the mind. So I guess in a sense, that's goodness, that we accept something favorable, reject that which is unfavorable. Intelligence is just kind of the product of, I guess you could say, knowledge. But yeah, I don't remember exactly how it's explained, so hopefully Srila Prabhupada's going to explain it. But we'll carry on with the purport. In this verse, it is clear that both kinds of senses, the senses for acquiring knowledge and the senses for action, are products of egoism in the mode of passion. And because the sense organs for activity and for acquiring knowledge require energy, the vital energy or life energy is also produced by egoism in the mode of passion. We can therefore actually see that those who are very passionate can improve in material acquisition very quickly. It is recommended in the Vedic scriptures that if one wants to encourage a person in acquiring material possessions, one should also encourage him in sex life. We naturally find that those who are addicted to sex life are also materially advanced, because sex life or passionate life is the impetus for the material advancement of civilization. There's always some noise. Oh Lord. For those who want to make spiritual advancement, there is almost no existence of the mode of passion. Wow, that's interesting. Only the mode of goodness is prominent. We find that those who engage in Krishna consciousness are materially poor, but one who has eyes can see who is the greater. Although he appears to be materially poor, a person in Krishna consciousness is not actually a poor man. But the person who has no taste for Krishna consciousness and appears to be very happy with material possessions is actually poor. That's a very powerful statement. Persons infatuated by material consciousness are very intelligent in discovering things for material comforts, but they have no access to understanding the spirit soul and spiritual life. Therefore, if anyone wants to advance in spiritual life, he has to come back to the platform of purified desire, the purified desire for devotional service. As stated in the Narada Pancharatra, engagement in the service of the Lord when the senses are purified in Krishna consciousness is called pure devotion. I found it very interesting that it mentions the vital force seems to be semen, and thus materially advanced people are encouraged in sex life. I guess it means the mode of passion equals the tendency towards sex life. Sex life is the impetus or driving factor for success, or you have to be materially successful in order to attract or find yourself in a partner, or engage in that, or maintain that kind of thing. So therefore, material success and mode of passion and the tendency or propensity for engagement in sex life go hand in hand. But I think it's really powerful. Prabhupada says that for those who want to make spiritual advancement, there's almost no existence of the mode of passion. It's pretty powerful, because how many people are situated in more or less kind of total goodness, with to speak of pure goodness, but so there's a lot of passion and ignorance going on, which I guess is the reason why there's not much spiritual advancement happening for most people. Any thoughts?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Next.
When egoism in ignorance is agitated by the sex energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the subtle element sound is manifested, and from sound come the ethereal sky and the sense of hearing. Purport. It appears from this verse that all the objects of our sense gratification are the products of egoism and ignorance. It is understood from this verse that by agitation of the element of egoism and ignorance, the first thing produced was sound, which is a subtle form of ether. It is also stated in the Danta Sutra that sound is the origin of all objects of material possession, and that by sound one can also... Oh, now we've got the bells from the cathedral.
Sound, piercing the ether.
This is nice, spiritual sound.
That was just a, 1:45 or something.
Huh?
No, that was 9
9.
o'clock. Ah,
Oh, there you go. 9 gongs.
We didn't plan this.
So I continue.
Sure.
It is stated also in the Vedanta Sutras that sound is the origin of all objects of material possession, and that by sound one can also dissolve this material existence. Anavrita Sabda means liberation by sound. The entire material manifestation began from sound, and sound can also end material entanglement if it has a particular potency. The particular sound capable of doing this is the transcendental vibration Hare Krishna. Our entanglement in material affairs has begun from material sound. Now we must purify that sound in spiritual understanding. There is sound in the spiritual world also. If we approach that sound, then our spiritual lives begin, and the other requirements for spiritual advancement can be supplied. We have to understand very clearly that sound is the beginning of the creation of all material objects for our sense gratification. Similarly, if sound is purified, our spiritual necessities also are produced from sound.
There you go. Shravanam, hearing, sound. So from sound, what is it? Even in the Bible it says, and in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So it's like the word or sound vibration. That's the origin, and from that everything else is manifested. And along with sound comes the ether, which the sound is carried in, which is the kind of courier or the facilitator, the holder of sound. And then of course at the same time the ears are created, which are the objects for which one can hear sound. So you have the sound, the carrier of the sound, and the object to encounter or interact with the sound. So I love these sections because it's all about creation, and it's really interesting. And I have heard different lectures and things, but haven't obviously recalled everything about how each one of, and that's what goes through now, is each one of the elements and how they're built up and how one leads to the next. But it basically starts, but it's interesting, it's egoism in ignorance. Egoism in ignorance that produces sound. And I guess because what we're doing is we're moving from subtle to more gross. So the ether is, because we've gone through mind, and first we start with ego, and then we go to mind and intelligence. This is the subtle body. Then we're moving to the ether, and the element that functions within ether is sound, and the sense organ that goes along with it is the ears. So in that sense, as Prabhupada says, the ear is really important. Sound, you can be confused by sound. Like if someone came up to us now and said, oh look, go here, go there. All you have is sound. You're trusting in sound. They could lie, they could be deceitful, they could be telling the truth, they could, so like that, we depend so much on sound.
Yeah, you can ruin your whole life just hearing the wrong sound.
Good point.
Like what happened to
Mantara,
yes, well, not her, but what happened to
Kaikei.
Kaike? Yeah, in
yeah.
Ramayana, she had the wrong sound, the wrong advice, brought the downfall of everything.
Okay, so read the next one. It's my turn, right?
Yeah.
Here it is said that from sound the ether became manifested, and that the air became manifested from ether. How the ethereal sky comes from sound, how air comes from sky, and how fire comes from air will be explained later on. Sound is the cause of the sky, and sky is the cause of Shrotram, the ear. The ear is the first sense for receiving knowledge. One must give oral reception to any knowledge one wants to receive, either material or spiritual. Therefore, Shrotram is very important. Shrotram is the ear. The Vedic knowledge is called Shruti. Knowledge has to be received by hearing. By hearing only can we have access to either material or spiritual enjoyment. There you go. Okay.
In the material world, we manufacture many things for our material comfort simply by hearing. They are already there, but just by hearing, one can transform them. If we want to build a very high skyscraper, this does not mean that we have to create it. The materials for the skyscraper, wood, metal, earth, etc., are already there, but we make our intimate relationship with those already created material elements by hearing how to utilize them. Modern economic advancement for creation is also a product of hearing, and similarly one can create a favorable field of spiritual activities by hearing from the right source. Arjuna was a gross materialist in the bodily conception of life, and was suffering from the bodily concept very acutely. Hearing is very important, and that hearing is produced from the sky. By hearing only can we make proper use of that which already exists. The principle of hearing to properly utilize preconceived materials is applicable to spiritual paraphernalia as well. We must hear from the proper spiritual source.
Quite astonishing that Prabhupada says Arjuna was a gross materialist in the bodily conception of life and was suffering from the bodily concept very acutely. I mean, we don't usually think of Arjuna quite like that. A gross materialist absorbed in the bodily concept of life and suffering acutely. I mean, usually we think someone else. But there you have it. Prabhupada is using that example that how easy it is that when one becomes bewildered, that then you're basically just on the gross platform. You just want to enjoy. You just think about how to please the senses. That's why it's such a battle to stay Krishna conscious and keep focused on the spiritual path. You know, so easy to fall away and get distracted. Or be kind of half in, half out, and think you're all the way in, or think you're all the way out, whichever.
Yeah, sometimes you can use the material enjoyments to prop up your thin layer of Krishna consciousness. And go through life for a long time like that.
20 odd years, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any other thoughts?
I have no other thoughts.
Okay. So I know we still have a question or two to answer. My apologies for that. We'll try to get on that today. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. St. Paul's Cathedral, a place of pilgrimage and a holy dham Ki Jai.